Oh, I guess it's your morning, Steve. So good morning. It's my afternoon.
Good afternoon, Linda. Nice to see you.
So let's get straight into this. Now, I just want to go back a little in time. You founded Concur in '93. You sold it in late 2014. What has made you stay in travel?
Honestly, Linda, I actually thought about not working in travel for a bit. I love the industry. I've always believed that travel is the best way for people to actually, understand each other. You spend time together, you have real conversations, you learn about each other, you learn about different cultures, and to me, it improves the understanding of that human beings have of each other. The only reason I thought about doing something else was that I spent 25 plus years in travel, and so I got into venture investing and I loved it. But sometimes fate kind of takes you in certain directions, and for me, I met three pretty incredible individuals that were building travel related companies, and just the mission that they were on, the technologies that they were able to leverage, and frankly, the nature of these three individuals is what led me back into travel. And of course, the fourth one is our investment in direct travel and getting to work with a longtime colleague who I think the world of. So sometimes life just takes you in directions and that you want to
Right.
embrace.
It drags you back in, especially travel, I think.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine it kind of 10 years ago when you sold Concur, that you'd be investing in buying a traditional travel agency, direct travel, and that you'd be CEO of emerging travel tech company, Spotnana?
No, I can't say that I would have predicted that. That said, Linda, I think that as technology has evolved, and not just cloud native architectures or cloud computing, but also artificial intelligence, which obviously was born out of machine learning. I think that the thing that's interesting about artificial intelligence is that it really can be equally leveraged whether you're a legacy company with thousands and thousands of customers or millions of customers, or you're a brand new technology company with no customers. It's the first technology that is equally available to any size company, to any kind of context. And in fact, if anything, it is more advantageous for companies that have legacy businesses or scale. And so I think there's an opportunity to reinvent the value that a TMC delivers, and frankly, even what a TMC is. And so because of these advancements in technology, because of the investments that we have in Spotnana, in Troop, and in Center, we felt like there was an opportunity to find to build a next generation TMC. In fact, we hope will be the next global leader in the TMC space. The key was finding a company that had the right cultural ambitions and mindset, as well as a track record for great customer experience and service, which I think are still foundational to how customers want to be served.
You talk about the next gen TMC, and we've spoken in the past about how the elements of Troop, Spotnana, and Center come together through direct. I mean, what essentially do you think you'll be doing differently to what's out there, the models that are out there currently?
A lot, Linda, is the short answer. But let's start with this. I think that you have to start with, if the technology is foundationally different, which means that you've got modern data models, modern access to content, truly NDC content that's serviceable, not just NDC content. Like NDC content availability has been around for quite some time, but being able to service it through technology in an automated fashion where the TMC agent can also add value to it, that's never been done. I think on top of that, these are all, whether you're talking about Spotnana, Troop, or Center, these are open platforms that anybody can add value to and innovate on top of. And so what the net result is, at least from a client perspective, is that you have a better value proposition, more a modern interface, a modern user experience, and the ability to innovate to meet any needs, whether they're specific to one company or to specific to a geography or to an industry. The second piece that I think is equally important is the cost structure of servicing transactions, of delivering that service, is dramatically cheaper in a modern technology stack. So in some cases, up to half the cost. And so I think that those two things give you an amazing opportunity to radically improve the value proposition for the customer as compared to legacy technologies. And look, I mean, I say this respectfully. Obviously, I was a part of building one of those legacy companies, Concur. They're great companies. All of these companies are great. I just think that you don't get the opportunity in life to sit on your laurels. You have to keep innovating. You have to keep improving the value you deliver. And there are these new technology architectures that allow you to have 2x to 10x improvement in value proposition. Well, that's hard to compete with, and that's a huge advantage if you're a customer.
You mentioned NDC there, and content that's serviceable, which has been really hard to do. That's the thing that's been holding up on the corporate travel side. So how are you thinking you're going to make it happen because of the modern technologies that you're bringing together? Is that your USP, so to speak?
It's one of the unique selling propositions, but it's not the only one. Let's start with why NDC is important. I think it's completely reasonable for suppliers, right? The airlines, hoteliers, car rental providers, dining establishments, meeting venues, the whole host of services that are needed to make business travel work. I think it's completely reasonable for every one of those suppliers to differentiate their offering and to deliver to you and I as consumers in a transparent relationship, in a transparent pipe, so that they know when they're selling that it's Steve or Linda on the other end of the connection. That doesn't exist today. The commerce model for travel is completely opaque. Certainly in the corporate travel industry, and arguably also in the consumer industry, except for when you go directly to the suppliers. And so the whole push towards NDC and the push why suppliers said, look, we're going to sell directly even, was because they wanted to differentiate. They wanted to be able to segment their content and deliver it in a way that is best for them and best for their consumers. Being able to enable that in the corporate travel space has not been done with any level of effectiveness. Number one. No. Number two, with any level of service, it has not been done. And so I think that's a unique value prop that we deliver. But that's just one piece of it. I mean, the reality is you can stand up Spotnana, you can stand up Troop and Center in one instance, deploy globally. And I know this sounds silly, but for Concur, when you're deploying at a large multinational, you're deploying by geography, and it takes quarters to deploy each geography. Right. And so that's a lot of expense and a lot of time for the customer. And that's what was available at that generation of technology. I think today you should be able to deploy a global customer in a matter of weeks, right? And that's something that is really a byproduct of modern technology architecture. I think on top of that, the other piece that's really important is that, look, we want to provide any interface into the product, and we tend to focus on travel in our conversation, so I'll just stick with that. But travel, if you book travel, booking on the phone certainly was a modern experience back in the 2007 to 14 range. But while that's important, and as is a web interface, I think honestly, conversational intelligence is going to become the modern way of booking travel. I'm just going to be able to speak to my phone and say, hey, look, book my travel for next week. That's it. That's a single sentence. Book my travel for next week. And the software, the AI agent, will be able to go look at your calendar, understand your behavior patterns, such as, hey, I know Linda likes to arrive 2 hours before the dinner meeting. and I know she has to be back on Friday at 3 o'clock because she's got some appointments that require her to be in town. And I know everything about Linda's preferences and everything about her corporate policy. I'm going to go ahead and book all that travel, and then update the itinerary both in the as a single itinerary that's available in Spotnana, but also in your calendar. And so that interface is radically different than anything that is available to you and I as consumers today. And so our view is, look, we need to make any interface into travel available, and we do. We need to make any piece of content available, and we do. We need to make sure that all of it is serviceable in a predictive, proactive model, right? And so I shouldn't have to pick up the phone and call my travel agent. I shouldn't have to ever, be reactive to a travel disruption. My software ought to be able to understand the disruption occurred, make alternative decisions on my behalf, or accommodations on my behalf, update my itinerary and let me know, and then say, hey, by the way, if you don't like what I selected for you, which of course is based on your pattern of behavior and your policies, here's the 2 or 3 other options you can easily select from just by clicking a button. That, in a cost structure that is a fraction of the existing cost structure, that's a huge advantage.
So I'm enjoying your use of the conditional tense there, because I shouldn't have to call my travel agent, and I shouldn't have to do this, and I could do this, but actually, how far away realistically do you think this is? Because you have just invested in a company that provides the kind of NLP piece of this, haven't you?
Yeah, we have, and that piece actually will be officially announced in a few days. It's okay. It's called Otto, OTTO Trip, and they provide the conversational intelligence, or as you said, natural language processing. It actually happens to sit on top of Spotnana. It integrates with Center, it integrates with Troop, and Direct Travel is one of the largest investors in that company. And not surprisingly, Direct will deliver this to its clients. You shouldn't have to do these things, but hey, if you want to call your agent, one of the other things that is uniquely different about this collection of applications of this collective platform is that at any point in time when you click to say, hey, I want to talk to an agent, the agent sees exactly where you are, exactly all of your content information, all of your preferences, everything is available to them in real time. So they're not looking at a different screen. They're looking at the exact same screen that you're looking at. And we think that leads to better interaction in that service capability. By the way, I don't think that the role of service will ever go away.
Right.
You and I will always want, and there'll always be situations where we want to talk to a counselor, a travel counselor. I just think that the scale of what travel counselors can handle will go up tenfold, because technology will enable them to deliver high quality service as if they were personally doing this in a completely automated, predictive, proactive model. And I think that's a redefinition of the TMC space.
Let's talk a little bit more about NDC. How much progress do you see it making this year? Because people have talked about it in previous years, NDC at scale this year. I think that was maybe even pre-pandemic. I think we've had some numbers recently from Amadeus and Sabre about, okay, yes, still small percentage, but we are expecting to see steady progress this year. That would be nice. What's your take on what sort of progress we'll see?
Linda, I think first things first, we have to accept that more than half of the content is not available in the GDS. It's available, right, outside GDS. And that is a very telling, piece of data. The second is that NDC technology to deliver and service NDC has not been widely available. Spotnana is in for all practical purposes leading the charge and defining the standards here. I think that there's, until that technology of delivering and providing service on NDC is made broadly available, I think NDC adoption will lag. That said, I think over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see enough broad-based adoption of technologies like Spotnana. And by the way, any of our partners can consume that NDC technology through our platform, even if they're not using the rest of our platform. So as that technology gets consumed, the adoption of NDC will go right with it. My view is that it's like anything else in technology. The first, everyone overestimates the impact in the near term, but they underestimate the impact in the long term. My sense is now we're reaching that point where in the next 5 years or so, this will be the primary vehicle of distribution for content.
Right. Okay. And that will be something like 16 years since it was first kind of mentioned, won't it?
Yeah, that's right, Lynn. And I think if you look at almost any technology, you're going to see an adoption curve that's measured in 1 to 2 decades from the time that the technology was first introduced or the invention was first created.
But do you think we're in danger with something like NDC of it becoming almost obsolete by the time it really works?
No, there'll always be evolutions to how technology is delivered. I think I think the next piece you're going to see on top of NDC is merchandising. I think the reality is that a supplier wants, first of all, they understand their inventory, they understand their economic drivers, they understand how they want to deliver their content. That has to get married to an understanding, which I think only really exists at the TMC side in corporate travel, an understanding of the buyer, an understanding of their behavior and of their objectives and desires. And as you'll see AI models being built around this on both sides, and being able to connect those AI models to actually start and complete a transaction. I think that's the next evolution of technology on top of the NDC pipes and services that are going to be made available.
And that sort of merchandising, offer, order, call it what you will. Do you think that kind of evolution takes as long as NDC has been taking?
No, because I think the reality is that the foundational technology here is NDC. And I think you'll see a lot of applications or services or technologies built on top of that in relatively short order. Just the same way you saw, you saw the iOS OS for iPhones and the like. It takes a while to build those core infrastructure components, but then you see applications proliferate on top of it. You'll see the same thing on top of NDC pipes. Now, obviously, NDC pipes is a bit more narrow in terms of platform versus an iPhone, but still, it's foundationally the same thing. It's an underlying piece of technology that you can build value on top of.
We've seen lots of different approaches from airlines. We've seen carrot, we've seen stick, we've seen something in between. What might your approach be if you were an airline executive? How would you make it work?
Yeah, fortunately, I'm not an airline executive. I'm sure I'll fail miserably at that. Look, I think I have to give American a lot of credit. I think that they're trying to push the bounds on reinventing how content is distributed, and frankly, push the bounds on what it means to run a world-class airline. And that said, we all, pick any business, we all have things that are slight missteps. I think far more important is the desire to serve the customer in the way the customer wants to be served. And I think that's what American was trying to do. I think that what you're going to see is as long as the approach is focused on meeting the customer where they're at, I think you're going to see American and others be very, very successful, which to me means, hey, if the customer wants to consume through the GDS, traditional EDIFACT pipes, great. If they want to consume through NDC, great. Or they want to do both, that's fine as well. And what will end up happening is client demand will drive the adoption of the relevant kind of technology and/or delivery model, which I happen to believe will be NDC. It's just a modern technology versus the EDIFACT technology stack that existed before, which enables new services, which makes the client experience better, and that's as simple as that. It's nothing more complicated.
Two quick follow-ups before we move on. Do you think airlines now are customer focused? I mean, we still see some disasters out there.
Yeah,
many disasters out there.
Like I said, it's tough to be in a global transportation industry because you're dealing with issues that sometimes you have no control over, and so I feel for them on this.
Yeah.
And it also tells you how interdependent we've all become, right? One piece of technology in a small piece of technology in the Windows OS, um, um, or application stack brings down the
Yeah.
transportation grid. Um, Look, I think that I'm actually really pleased with where transportation industries actually come over the last decade. I think the reality is we're more customer centric than we've ever been.
Hmm.
I would argue some are better than others. But that to me is great because if there's competition, you set the bar for what the experience ought to be. And look, I happen to have my own set of favorite providers, but if you set the bar for what competition ought to be, everybody else has to rise to it because that's what we as consumers expect. And I love that. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think American does a great job. I happen to love Delta. I think they do a wonderful job.
Hmm.
So it's just nobody can deal with kind of uh, black swan events.
Yeah, we're sometimes at the mercy of
Yeah.
events, as you say. Do you feel in those 10 years, when you left Concur behind you and you built up your portfolio, your investments, do you feel that much changed in distribution, in the travel distribution kind of landscape?
I think that obviously one change has occurred, which is more and more of the content is made available directly from the supplier. That said, I don't think a lot outside of that has changed. I think, frankly, there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the distribution of that content or in the technologies that are used to consume that content. Concur was still leading the way, and my view is that it's very hard when you see massive disruptions in the underlying technologies like cloud computing and like artificial intelligence. It's very hard to adopt those technologies without completely rewriting your application stack. And I think that's very difficult to do for large scale businesses. Concur is it's the equivalent, if it was a standalone business, it's a, Fortune 2000 or Fortune 2500 company today. And it's hard to reinvent your business while you have a huge scale business. It takes courage. And I think sometimes there it's a lot easier for young companies to come in and say, look, I don't have any of the baggage of the past. I can invent, without the weight of caring for my existing customers. Um, but business is tough. You have to actually solve for both. And I don't think a lot of innovation has occurred other than in companies like a Spotnana or Troop or Center. And like I get the benefit of being able to invest in companies like this and work with these amazing founders and hopefully build the next generation of not just Concur, but the next generation of many parts of the technology stack in the travel industry, everything from payments to distribution.
I also wanted to get your views on the kind of wider consolidation in corporate travel world. You've got, Travel Park Amtrav, Amex GBT, CWT still in the works there. What do you think are the drivers of this consolidation?
Well, I think it shows clearly that, hey, you need scale in order to build a
Yeah.
profitable growth business. You need scale to be able to actually invest in new technologies. And I think that it's the same drivers you see in any industry. The fact that the TMC industry, a segment of the travel industry, is as fragmented as it is just
Mm.
amazing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's unlike most other industries where you see at least some level of consolidation to, one or two or three, kind of leading players that own collectively 50, 60% of the market. I think you're going to see that in the TMC industry, in TMC's segment. I'm sorry. I happen to think it'll be direct travel that will be the market leader. I think you'll see that in travel platforms in the form of companies like Spotnana. I think Center will redefine expense management and frankly how payments are delivered in the travel industry. And then Troop, look, Troop, what's amazing about it, the fact that we're sitting here in 2024 and group travel is still a largely manual process. It's a
Yeah.
huge opportunity. The fact that it wasn't solved for is amazing. When I first met Dennis and team, I had to kind of, you know, do a double take and say, why is it that this problem wasn't solved? How did I miss this? And so I think that there's a massive new wave of value and of leaders that will emerge in the next 5 years.
Do you think there's still opportunities for anyone looking to start a business in corporate travel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about well, I mean, let's just take all of travel. All of travel is an $11 trillion global industry. Corporate travel is at least a couple of trillion, depending on what portions you measure, up to 3 trillion in opportunity. Anytime you're talking about a market that's measured in trillions, there's huge opportunity. In fact, I would argue that no one has really solved the unmanaged travel segment well. No one delivers a solution for that segment exceptionally well. I think Otto Trip will do that. I think companies like that have immense opportunity to go after a completely underserved market. That's one. I think the reality is the middle market will get totally transformed. You'll see enterprise grade solutions available in the middle market at a cost structure that's a fraction of the existing cost structure. So you're going to see that market get transformed. Let's look at consumer travel for just a second here. The reality is that if you're built on top of open platforms like Spotnana, like Troop or Center, you can actually build consumer travel plays that not only give you a wide range of choices. In fact, you can have a very specific vertical for curated luxury trips, but you'll deliver the servicing of a TMC inside of that consumer experience. Where today, if you look at a lot of the companies that serve these market segments, I might argue most of the mega consumer travel plays, the service quality is less than desirable. It would be a polite way of saying it. I think the reality is you should be able to deliver choice with incredible service. You should be able to deliver ease with incredible service. And that to me means that anybody who's investing in travel today or who's building a travel company, this is your golden era. This is your opportunity to build a generational company.
Do you think you'll invest as direct travel in more TMCs? Do you think there's areas that you'd like to plug in? Is that something that would interest you? Are there gaps?
I could see us acquiring other TMCs. I could see us partnering with other TMCs. Absolutely. I think the piece that's required though is that the infrastructure. If you think this is a bit geeky, but if you look at how TMCs are run, the infrastructure is very different from one TMC to the next TMC. They may all deliver Concur or Deem or other products like Serco, but their ERP, their call center, their servicing stack, their reporting, all the things that are required to actually serve the customer are different from TMC to TMC. If we can start to standardize on that, you lower your cost structure, number one. Number two is you make it a lot easier to partner on a global basis. So for example, things like Radius and others have been around for a long time. There was this dream of we will have a global consortium that allows a customer to use whatever TMC is an expert in whatever geography. That's a great idea, but it doesn't work unless the technology stacks are standardized across these industries. And for the first time ever with companies like Spotnana, you can do that. And you can do that while still differentiating what you want to do for your particular geography, but having a common stack across all geographies or across all TMCs or most TMCs, that will be a huge advantage. In fact, I think that TMCs that don't adopt Spotnana over time will be at a fundamental disadvantage because the TMCs that do adopt it will be able to interoperate.
Do you feel now that you've stepped in as CEO of Spotnana as well as kind of overseeing direct travel? I know you've got a great team in place at direct travel. Are there lessons that you'll want to apply, experiences from Concur that you'll look to apply, lessons learned that missteps you said earlier on that you don't want to make?
Yeah, many. That's in my view, the value of a life well lived is that you're going to not only have some great successes, but you'll have some things that you wish you had done differently. And to me, that also comes from innovation, from pushing the bounds, from trying to learn. Look, of course there are, and I think look, I was fortunate to have a wonderful team at Concur. I've got the beginnings of an incredible team at Spotnana. I want to add to that team, and really bring some scale and global experience to the team, which you saw us already starting to move in that direction, and you'll see additional announcements in the coming half a year or so over the next 6 months. But I think the other piece is that I always had a desire for Concur to be an open platform. The technology at the time wasn't as robust to enable that openness as it is today. And so
Yeah.
I'm very, very committed to making sure that Spotnana, Troop, and Center, and even Direct remain open platforms. Because I think if we can take our innovation and make it available to others to use and to build value on top of, the reality is the rate of change, the rate of value creation for the customer increases, number one. Number two is you get to leverage the incredible brain power that exists across the planet, right? I mean, the reality is if your platform's open, you can have an innovator in Prague, building I'm making this up, a set of duty of care services that sits on top of Spotnana that's available to any TMC that wants to consume it. Like, that's incredible, right? And being able to say, hey, look, by the way, if you want to take that duty of care service that young company in Prague built, and you want to modify it and open it up even further or add value to it, have at it. Like, that to me drives better value for the customer. And that's something I wish I could have done, better at Concur, but we will do that at Spotnana, Troop, and Center. The other piece I think is equally important is the transparency. I think it's very important that the relationship between the buyer and the seller of travel services is a transparent pipe. Now, the corporation and the individual get to make modifications to that. But it's important that it's a transparent pipe, and that hasn't existed in the past. And so those two things I'd like to improve upon.
Well, very good. Conscious of time here, so just to round up, are there any bets that you'd wish you'd made? Any companies that you perhaps had a chance to invest in and you didn't, or perhaps areas of the industry?
There's areas in the industry I'd like to invest in. And look, I have the advantage of not only being an operating executive at Spotnana, but also an investor across any number of companies. And I think that property management systems, CRM systems for hoteliers, for any venue actually, need to be upgraded. I think that payment rails for AI agents have to be invented. And so there's a range of other areas I'd love to invest in, and that we're always on the lookout for great companies in this space or great entrepreneurs who have the capacity to go execute. But if you think about it, like let's just use the hotel example. The reality is that there's a lot of services the hotelier can deliver and that has the services available, but not a vehicle to actually make it available to you and I as customers. I want to check in at 9 a.m. in the morning, not at 3 p.m. I want to check in at 9 a.m. when flight has arrived, and I'd like to be in my hotel room, either rest or do some work before my meetings. I'd like meal service to be, hey, why can't I text this on my phone and integrate it not only into my itinerary and receipt, but also into the operational system of the hotel. I want to be able to have my car service, program integrated into my entire itinerary, and actually, be able to pick me up at my hotel and take me to my set of meetings. But why can't I have that as an AI agent that actually manages my calendar and works across not just my user experience, but also alerts the hotelier that, hey, look, you've got a customer who's checking in. They're going to be here in 5 minutes. Like the property management systems need to be upgraded, and they need to be open and allow for that integration. And so if I can find a great company in this space, I'd love to invest in this space. I also think as we move to a world of AI agents, right, that are booking travel on our behalf, I think there's got to be an authentication model for how that AI agent actually purchases on your behalf. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of purchases hitting credit cards that haven't been validated that these are legitimate purchases. So the payment rails have to have a layer of applications built around it that allow kind of authenticity and authentication of payments.
You do seem to be making quite a big bet on AI agents. What do you think might be the challenges there?
Look, I think it's like any new technology. It'll take some time for it to really become, to live to the expectations that we all have in our minds. Our human beings are incredible at, once you know you want something, your level of expectations is through the roof. The technologies take some time to get to our level of expectations. So I think AI agents are going to take some time because they have to understand all your historical pattern of data, which is sometimes available, sometimes not available. They have to understand how your current situation in life might impact your prior behaviors. They have to understand, how do external factors like weather and other activities that you might be involved in on a particular trip, how they impact your choices. So there's still a lot of training and learning that has to happen around AI agents. I think you're going to see that over the next couple of years, you're going to see an exponential growth in the quality of these AI agents.
Steve, an absolute pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time.
Linda, very nice to see you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care now.
Bye.